We're here with my dear friend Dick Boak, who is an amazing talent, wonderful illustrator and artist, and luthier, guitar maker, for those who don't know what a luthier is. And it's just so wonderful to have him here with the Retroactive family. I just want to throw out first, Dick, where did all this creativity begin in your life? I mean, where you realized I can draw and you had all this creative energy going. When did that begin?
First of all, I had a very serious eye accident when I was 6 years old. I was playing in the street and with a street cleaner bristle, and it punctured my eye. And I went to the hospital, and the surgeon did a fabulous job operating on my right eye. In order to not disturb the stitches in my right eye, they had to tape both eyes shut for 5 weeks. So
Wow.
I was completely blind, lying on my back for 5 weeks. And
Wow.
when the bandages finally came off, I was so unbelievably appreciative of vision. That event became defining, and I was always really fascinated with vision. I remember in my living room, the sun would come through the window, and I thought that I could see atoms in the light. Maybe it was floaters from my accident. I was really fascinated by that, and I always had a little bit of a challenge out of my right eye, kind of a distorted vision, but very good vision out of my left eye. I did a good amount of reading about left brain, right brain, and I think that my left brain, right brain had to do a little switch. I'm right-handed. Theoretically, my right eye would be dominant, and I think my brain had to switch over. I've always called that dual dominance, where my left eye is in charge and I'm right-handed.
How is your vision out of your right eye today?
I have none. I'm completely blind
Are
in
you
my
really?
in my right eye.
When you came out of this terrible situation of being dark for 5 weeks, did you begin drawing then? Is that when it began for you to really?
Well, my brother Bill had gone to Philadelphia to be on Dick Clark.
Yeah.
We thought that was the coolest thing in the world. He came back from that and he had a little index card, a little business card with this little character on it. And the character was so cool. I thought it was so cool. And I copied it over and over and over again until I could draw it very easily. The little character's name was Clyde Clodd, a little goofy guy with
Buffon.
a greased up bouffant. Yeah. I drew that character probably 500,000 times. I drew it for all my friends, and they would always, hey, draw me a Clyde Clodd. Everybody thought I could draw really well and complimented me. And I think that reinforced everything. And I started drawing these little cartoons, kind of dark cartoons about racism and bullying and different topics. So I just kept going and I got better and better at it. But eventually the Kohinoor company that made rapidographs, they started up over here just about 15 miles away over the border into New Jersey. And I got hooked up with Kohinoor because they thought that my drawings be interesting to Kohinoor, possibly for advertising. They were advertising in American Artist magazine and things like that. I met with them and I became friends with the sales rep. One afternoon he said, we'd like to use one of your drawings in a national ad in American Artist magazine, which was
Wow, that's
just
great.
a huge, huge honor for
Yes.
me.
How old were
Oh,
you?
I was probably in college at that point.
What were you studying in college?
Women, mostly. I started as an English major, but I very quickly changed over to art. I had a very good art teacher that, kept pushing me. He was mostly sculpture.
When you got out of college, did you continue to draw and all that, or did you get attracted to Martin guitar? When did you start it?
I got a job after that as night watchman for the Connecticut River Hydroelectric Project from 10 o'clock until 6 in the morning, 10 p.m. to 6 in the morning. I
Mhm.
just sat in this little shed, checked in trucks that were coming in to deliver cement, which was not that often. I had 8 hours. I had to sit in this little heated shed, and it was just a fantastic job for me because I get to draw for
Right.
8 hours. And I produced a lot of drawings during that time. I'd say that my technique improved fairly dramatically during that time.
And
Gradually, I changed over. I had a friend named Jeannie O'Keefe who was doing these kind of mandalas, kind of Buddhist meditative circular designs. I started doing those. I call them yantras. Yantra would be the visual representation of a mantra or a mandala. Did quite a lot of those, and they became more and more complex. And eventually, I got kind of bored with doing circular geometric designs and started to break those geometric forms out of their symmetry into more free form or representational images of a woman and a bull and different things. The geometry broke down into pointillism, and then the pointillism kind of took off.
Your work is wonderful. I've always been a big fan of your artwork. And how did all this lead to Martin Guitar? Because Dick was artist's rep at Martin for 40 years or something, and then you went into the archives.
Happened to really get lucky and get a job with my old art teacher from Blair Academy. I was very happy to be offered a job teaching. So I taught there for a year, and then I got an offer in Stowe, Vermont, from a small progressive school in Stowe, Vermont, to teach art up there. Mm-hmm. And I did that for 2 years, and that was drawing as well as three-dimensional design. While I was in Vermont, I got introduced to the Peter Turin Musica, which was a musical instrument workshop where they were building violin family and some other stringed instruments. Somehow I found out that Martin Guitar had a dumpster. Actually, I stopped in and took the tour, and I was so flabbergasted at the woods that they were using that I asked if they had any scraps, and they sent me around to the side of the building. The dumpster was filled with rosewood, mahogany, spruce, koa. I mean, I couldn't believe it. So I loaded up my car from the dumpster, and I came back the next day and I got more, and I probably went back to the dumpster 500 times. And they got to know me at the back door. The foreman would save stacks of rejected wood for me. One day he said, "Well, what do you do with this stuff anyhow?" I had quite a lot of things in the car, and I handed some up to him, a small musical instrument too that I had made. He took him around the shop, and he ran into C.F. Martin III, who was elderly at the time, probably close to 80 years old. Mr. Martin saw Harvey and said, "What do you have there, Harvey?" And he said, "Well, look what the kid made." He looked at them and he said, "That's pretty good. Tell the kid to apply for a job."
How old were you, Dick, at this point?
It's 23, 24.
Were you playing music at this time?
I always tried to. I never considered myself very good. I loved guitars and stringed instruments.
Yeah.
And I'd been trying to build them since I was 11 or 12 years old.
When did you become artist rep where, working with?
That was a job that I always wanted. I wanted to be working with guitar players that played Martin guitars. And there was a lot of phone calls that would come in. Like Bob Dylan had called and he wanted to buy a Martin guitar. And he said, "Well, I'm sorry, you'll have to go to a dealer because we don't sell directly." I wanted to sell guitars directly to the artists.
Sure.
And I fought for that for a long time. And eventually they allowed me to do that. What really changed things was MTV Unplugged. The Eric Clapton show had garnered so much attention. He was playing a 1939 0042, beautiful guitar. My idea was to try and replicate the instrument, a limited edition. The sales manager thought it was a terrible idea and that it would be too expensive for anybody to buy. And Chris Martin was behind it. We agreed to make a limited edition of 461 instruments after 461 Ocean Boulevard. I always like to have a story, a number that meant something. We made some prototypes and delivered one to Eric, and he loved it. And we took it to the NAMM show out in California. There was a lot of media publicity surrounding it. It was really the first significant artist signature model in the industry, really. The dealers just went nuts. All 461 guitars sold out or pre-ordered on the first day of the NAMM show. The sales manager that had said that he wasn't interested or that it was a bad idea put his arm around me and he said, "Okay, what's our next project?"
And that's how it kind of began.
The next project was Johnny Cash, and then Paul Simon, and then Joan Baez, and then Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Let's talk about your music a little bit. Are you writing music these days?
I'm not doing much music these days. I played auto harp. I learned how to play Rock of Ages or something out of the songbook, and then put it in the box and threw it in the closet. Till I saw John Sebastian of the Love and Spoonful playing one. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And I got it out and got it all tuned up, and I started to learn how to play it. And I got pretty good at it. So started a little bit of recording and doing my own songs, as well as some Rolling Stones and Beatles covers and things like that. So that took off, and I ended up doing 2 albums. One was called Beside You,
Hmm.
and the other is called Over the Super Moon.
Are you building any guitars today?
Yeah.
You're still making guitars and you're still drawing and you're still creating.
I had a nice stack of guitar wood that I
Uh-huh.
had saved for my retirement. And when I retired, I started dabbling at it. When the pandemic hit, I really needed something to keep.
Yes.
Remember how we were all kind of crazy,
Yeah.
not knowing what to do? I figured the only way I'm going to keep my sanity is to get to work. And I started making guitars and I got a little carried away. I think I've made more than 40.
How many were you building at a time?
One, two, or at
Three.
the very most, three at the most.
Who were some of the artists that were your favorite to work with when you were over there at Martin? Who really do you remember that was just wonderful to be with?
The Clapton Project is what opened it up. Joan Baez was fantastic. I wrote a book called Martin Guitar Masterpieces. In that book, I told the stories behind. I loved working with Clapton. I loved working with Joan Baez and John Mayer, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Dion, and Judy Collins, and pretty
Yeah.
much anybody that plays acoustic guitar usually has discovered that Martin guitars are at the pinnacle of acoustic tone.
What drew you to Retroactive to come on board?
Well, it was probably you.
It was.
In many ways, I was the spokesman for Martin guitars for several decades. So I have a lot of stories to tell. I like the idea of having a legacy and telling the story and having it live on.
Yeah, and I think with Retroactive, we can do a lot of stories from Dick Boak. And I know you don't want to sell any of your guitars. I still think your guitars are pretty amazing too. And I'm really going to be very interested in seeing what Retroactive and you do together. We did a gallery showing of Dick's work at Vassar College, and it was just wonderful. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that was really fun. Steve Miller showed up for that, and John
Yeah.
Sebastian. It was great.
So I think, with Retroactive, I think our imaginations are the only thing that'll limit us. I think that with your work, it's going to be really interesting to see what products we can create.
I think there's an opportunity to do some really nice and tasteful products. I don't want to get crass with it. I think keeping it tasteful and
This is very unique, and I think the go-to platform to find things that are unique and really beautiful. That's what Retroactive's all about, is really building brands with artists such as yourself that create these masterpieces that people can't get anywhere else. I think that's kind of really what.
I'm flattered that Retroactive would feel that there's a market for anything that I've done, and I'm excited to see what we can do with it.
What inspires you?
I was influenced pretty heavily by M.C. Escher. Sometimes it's not what you draw, but it's how you draw it. Many of my drawings, I would simply begin without an idea and let it expand upon itself, see where it went. I like nature and the geometric forms of nature. I love trees, and I've done lots and lots of drawings of trees. I avoided human forms.
And are you working with magnification when you're doing that? Because God, some of your work is.
Oh, but I do work very close. Because I'm blind in one eye, I work probably about 8 inches from the drawing surface with good light. And I usually very lightly sketch in pencil first, creating the zones, and then work on individual zones to create a layer or 2 layers or 3 layers. When you're working with dots, overlays of dots eventually create pure black. There's quite a range between white and black on the drawing surface.
What do these works take in time? I mean, per drawing?
The most time I ever spent was maybe 3 months, usually a couple of weeks.
Well, let's talk about your retirement concert.
I retired at the end of 2015. I didn't want to have a sterno dinner at some crappy little restaurant like most people do when they retire. My career was largely musical, and with many of the greatest musicians of our era, that I could probably put together a pretty good concert. So I approached Steve Miller, I think was the first one. So with him on board, I started to approach some other people. Asked John Mayer. I didn't think there was any chance that he would say yes, but he immediately said he would be there. Jorma Kaukonen was involved. I do want to signal out Steve Miller because he's been just a tremendous friend over the years and so supportive. And it was really his involvement and his connections combined with mine that enabled some of these things to happen. So he really deserves a lot of credit.
And I think been a great chat with, again, my great friend, Dick Boak. Wonderful luthier, artist, and I'm looking forward to everybody coming and really getting familiar with his work and appreciating his work because he deserves it. He's an amazing artist and a wonderful human. I'm still going to get one of his guitars someday.